Welcome to Explore, Explain, Highlights. In this highlights package, we'll be looking at Season 4, Episode 9, with our guests Chloe Whiteaker and Marie Patino, discussing the project Taylor Swift Vaults into Billionaire Ranks.
But in terms of the audience, I think it got as you said, it was received pretty well. And like on the terminal, I think you looked up stats, but it was a very popular piece the day it was published. So I do think like Bloomberg readers actually, enjoyed it. I wouldn't say they were Swifties, but they definitely, are
that was my
into
next
the
question.
topic.
Yeah.
And do you want to go ahead, Chloe? Sorry.
Oh, I was just gonna add that, I think that I wouldn't say there's always that little seed of doubt, like, are people going to get this, or is this going to feel too juvenile for like somebody, a trader who's on Bloomberg's terminal. Of course, you're like, oh, but we don't really let that dictate our design decisions. We just kind of make sure that we meet the readers where they are and bring them along so that they kind of understand it and it makes sense. So that definitely came into the design as well, just like making it very clear that beads are data and that beads are related to Taylor Swift. Because we thought, of course, not every Bloomberg, maybe the majority of Bloomberg's typical audience would not off the bat know the connection. But actually, we were kind of surprised that a lot of people did. A lot of financial people have kids and, and spouses and partners who are big Swifties, and they are paying for concerts and flying to, booking their trips to Paris and everything to go to the concert. We had people in the newsroom who were like, oh, I was just making bracelets with my daughter last night, or they're helping their mom with a side business, like making bracelets. So yeah,
absolutely.
It was actually surprising.
And I guess the most important technology to focus on for this is the analog craft stuff. So, Marie, I'm just thinking, how did you go about, I don't know, sourcing the craft materials that you needed for this? I'm, thinking there's glue, there's the beads. Where did you get them from in New York? You run around to the garment district to get these things. What was the sort of the craft side of the tools?
Yeah. We actually got an enormous amount of beads, I will say, from Amazon. We ordered a bunch of, I think 3 different kinds of beads, because originally we wanted to use a different kind, like beads that are called clay beads and that are a little thinner, so that we could have, maybe instead of 20 million per bead, we could have 1 million per bead.
More granularity,
but we tried a couple of things, and honestly, using clay beads looked pretty awful, so we pivoted pretty rapidly to using the thicker pony beads that we end up using in the final piece. We got a remarkable amount of beads shipped to the office or Chloe's apartment. I don't remember exactly. And then we brought glue guns in also.
And the glue guns came later, because first we were just like trying to tie knots, and we were like, it's really hard to get a good knot with the kind of, we didn't have the right kind of string, I think, for like the ideal knots. But
I think there's a picture of Chloe looking desperate as the string untied and everything just went back up.
There is a head in hands shot of you, Chloe, which feels like the moment of desperation kicking in.
One of many moments.
But I mean, I think it's interesting there what you've talked about, Maria, that even at this level of something that on the surface is quite a novelty thing, there's a thought that goes into the material type and the different ways that these things might even, I don't know, respond to the glare of a photograph being taken, and the size and all these things that you're having to anticipate. So it makes sense that you've got a huge shipment of beads to cover all eventualities without question. I mean, a little detail that we see in this first chart that we do in all the others as well is this, and I think it's correct, it's kind of almost illustrated string on top of the graphic. And I don't know, just talk me through that choice, because obviously it doesn't happen by chance. It's a deliberate choice, but I just felt it was a really nice extra little flourish.
I think flourish is the perfect word to use. I like that. Yeah, we wanted it to feel just not overly polished. We wanted it to feel kind of organic and like as if it's being made. We pair it with the photo right next to it of a woman who's making a bracelet, so it gives the sense of it also that it's like unfinished. There's going to be more beads probably added, and we couldn't use like the actual string because it's clear, clear and stretchy, so it just wouldn't show well. So we just kind of added that as a thin black line. I also just wanted to add that some of these, like the separators, had and these little flourishes, like the little pearls, had a dual purpose because they helped make it easier to read, but then they also just made it feel more like the style of friendship bracelets that you would see people wearing, rather than just like a long string that's not very exciting to look at.
No, that makes sense. And again, just going back to the little flourish, I mean, it also brings a bit of depth to it because it overlaps over the photograph. There's a little bit of a shadow, so it kind of brings it as a texture away from the body, which I think works really well. And another thing that we see in this, which is also repeated elsewhere, is just a little random scattering of the occasional bead, which again adds to this sense of a live craft taking place. I mean, I think, Marie, you might have been responsible for this as well as some of the other animations that we see lower down. What was the thinking there? Was it just simply a case of let's just sprinkle them because why not?
Yeah, I mean, I think that in projects like that, in all graphics projects, the details are super important. So I do think we really wanted to make sure that the whole project felt, polished, and that we were really paying attention to details and trying to make it as joyful and fun that we could. So the pearls were pretty, I don't know, it just became pretty clear that it would be a thing that we could be doing also with the material that we had, just because we had already shot the beads and we had them. So it was pretty easy to add them in. And yeah, it's the same thing for the Polaroid pictures. That is a repeated motif throughout the whole entire copy and the whole entire story. I think it's nice to be consistent. So if you give that a picture the Polaroid treatment, then give all of your pictures that treatment, because it's just going to make it more cohesive and coherent and just make it more fun too. So the scatter of beads was definitely something that was also a pretty low-hanging fruit, just because we had them. And then we wanted to repeat that bead motif throughout the story. So and the animations I think were also came pretty late as a nice to have. That was definitely not essential, but hopefully help make the whole story also like punctuated with little moments where that kind of revive readers' attention, or make them be like, oh, that's fun, or things like that.
It's like little
which
gifts
hopefully
as
is
you
what
go down,
it does.
little gift to the reader. These are something new
hopefully.
to look at, and that sense of coherence and consistency unifies the whole thing together brilliantly.
In this case, initially Marie and I were thinking like maybe we can just shoot this ourselves. And we so we got the bracelets because it was so fluid and it was moving fast. I was like, I don't know when we're gonna get this done, how we can like just schedule a photographer and coordinate on this timeline. But so we took some like very bad iPhone photos just for like rough sketches to show the team, kind of like a dry run of like, here's sort of what we're thinking. And the photos were awful. I mean, we weren't trying very hard to make them good, like, but it was pretty clear. And our editor Alex Tribute was like, you really should think about getting a photographer. I was like, yeah, that's actually a great idea. And the photo team had asked us before too, like, do you want a photographer for this? And we're like, I don't know if we'll be able to like make it work with the time. But so that was Marie Monteleone who we worked with, and she was fabulous. And like it was kind of last minute where we were like, you know what, actually we need to take you up on that. Do you think it's too late to find a photographer? And she was like, no, I'll get on it. And we told her, we're thinking maybe there could be a stop motion too, so if they have experience making those. And she's like, yeah, that's great. And so she kind of went through her Rolodex and figured out who was available, and he was in like the next day or 2 days later. So it all worked out very well.
Thank you for joining us for this Explore, Explain highlights episode. As always, the full episode is available on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. We hope to see you again soon on another episode of Explore, Explain.